Well, it is 7 o'clock at night, and I am here right on time. So, first of all, people are still joining us. We're gonna give maybe a little bit of time, maybe a couple of minutes for people to join, and then we will start our today's event. All right. Okay, now I just got here into the chat room. How you all doing? Those of you guys who are joining us right now, we got Corey from Chicago, Nuno Rosado from Portugal. How you doing, Nuno? Thank you for joining. Cherry Ponyo from Toronto. How you doing? Chase Langy. It's all good. What do you know? Mark Reinhold, how you doing? Okay, so first of all, I'm going to exit this for a moment. I got to do a few things before we get going. Okay, guys. Now, all right. So here's the deal. Here's the deal. This is what I want you guys. Let's start. First of all, let's just get a little bit familiar with the interface. I would like to, first of all, you have a Q&A tab and you should have a chat tab. So I want you guys to know that if you guys have any questions, you should do them through the Q&A tab. We're not going to be using the chat tab as we start with the activity. Okay, we're going to use the Q&A tab. But first of all, I would like for everybody to raise their hand. Raise their hand so I can see where this pops. All right, you should have a button that says raise your hand. All right. So please show me 14 participants, 27, 15, 90, perfect, raising their hands. That's awesome. So we have some people raising their hands. That is awesome. And then some more, and then some more. That is awesome. And we got more people joining us. So let's begin. Let's begin. But before we begin, I have to tell you, I've been doing this kind of activities, these live videos on Facebook for a while. And I have found that they are a lot of fun. People tend to enjoy them and people ask questions. And the idea is that, we're able to share a little bit of information amongst each other. And hopefully you leave here today with some useful information. Now, every time I do a live Facebook video, I have a beer. And right here, I'm going to show you this device. It's called Physics. Physics is not sponsoring us, but they are very helpful, and I'm going to show you why. Physics is a device that will help me serve the beer properly. I am going to have this beautiful IPA. This is by Lakefront Brewery, and I'm going to put it right here inside Physics. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to show you guys, but you know what? Let me see if I can move the microphone a little bit. And right there, this is, oh, geez, the microphone is, Hello, can you guys hear me now? How about now? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yes, awesome. So I'm going to pour the beer right here with the physics. And as you can see, this is a wonderful device. Any beer you put in there, it will undergo an ultrasonic treatment and it will be poured to perfection. To perfection. Here we go, a little bit of foam, nice head, great IPA. Cheers, my friend. Oh, this is wonderful. So let's get the physics out of the way. Again, physics is not sponsoring us in any way, but it's always nice to have physics around. So, like I was saying, these live videos that I do are really fun, are really engaging, and also I believe they are a little bit entertaining. But with BISCO, we're going to be using all sorts of different options that I have here on this interface that you also have, because we're doing this through an app called Zoom. So this should be very, very entertaining. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to do a poll. Okay, just to see where we're standing, where everybody, you know, where everybody is regarding the first. My first question is going to be, how did you register for the webinar? So if you guys got an email from BISCO, that will be your answer. If you saw this on Facebook, that will be your answer. If you saw this on Instagram, that will be your answer. The reason being is that we want to see which one of the interfaces works the best. Okay, so okay, I think we are pretty much done. Brilliant. No, not yet. Not yet, and we are done. Brilliant. So half of you guys registered because you got an email from BISCO, and the other half joined because you saw this either on Facebook or you saw it on Instagram. So that's awesome. Great. Now, what we're going to do now is make sure that we're ready to go. And I'm going to lower everybody's hands. Everybody's hands is low. So the topic for today is predictable bonding to zirconia. Now, zirconia is a hot topic, and it's gaining more and more popularity. At the beginning, zirconia was only used for posterior restorations. Nowadays, it's being used in anterior restorations and even veneers, which is really interesting because now we're talking about a really strong restoration that can be bonded and it will be aesthetically pleasant. So that's kind of like what we need to talk about, because this material is somehow taking over a lot of space in the restorative world. So let's, I'm going to show you some of the topics we'll be covering. All right, we're going to talk about what zirconia is, how do you prep the surface, the bonding protocol, and how to optimize the cementation procedure. And I have to tell you, this IPA is 100% optimized. So what is zirconia? Zirconia is a ceramic material, all right? It's zirconium oxide. Zirconium is a metal, zirconium, but the oxide from that metal is called zirconia. You know, there's a process called the Kroll process, and I'm not gonna get into that. That is really irrelevant. But in dentistry, it all started out with yttria stabilized zirconia. Okay, why zirconia? Well, zirconia is a very, very, very strong material, but it also has the ability to stop crack propagation as you apply pressure to it, as you apply load. And the reason for this is because it can undergo something called phase transformation. So it's very, very, very strong, okay? It will withstand more load than any other material out there, more than any ceramic, more than Emax, more than feldspathic porcelain. It will withstand more load than metal. So it is the strongest material out there, all right? And like I said, at the beginning, it was a white material, very opaque, not very aesthetic. And you had technicians had to do some kind of masking on the restoration once it was done, once it was sintered. You know, they added some tints and so on to make it look a little bit more tooth-like. But the restoration is very, very strong. The material is very, very strong. However, zirconia doesn't have any silica in it, okay? Unlike Emax and unlike feldspathic porcelain, it does not have any silica in it. So one of the things that, you know, what happens with zirconia is that it cannot be etched. So even though it's a ceramic material, it cannot be etched with hydrofluoric acid. If you think about feldspathic porcelain and Emax, you can hydrofluoric acid etch these surfaces in order to obtain mechanical retention. And then you apply your silane and so on to bond to it. Every time you do bonding, you need to do those two things. You need to apply and you need to generate a micromechanical retention on the surface, and then you need to apply some kind of primer, okay, in order to bond to the surface. Now, can you etch zirconia? No, you cannot, all right? You cannot etch zirconia. So hydrofluoric acid etch will not do anything to the zirconia surface. So you need to find a different way to be able to generate that micromechanical retention. Now, when zirconia comes out, okay, we have silane as a surface primer. And silane is not going to work on zirconia either, because silane will work on a silica-containing surface, but it will not work on zirconia, okay? So hydrofluoric acid etch and silane application is out of the question. So at the beginning, people were, you know, using glass ionomer to cement or to lute the zirconia surface. They were using things like even zinc phosphate, okay? Okay, because that people didn't know how to bond to zirconia. Now, a way to generate, and we're going to talk about surface preparation now. In order to generate mechanical retention on zirconia, you need to do something to the surface. Now, I got a question. Let me see. Somebody ask a question. Where's my sidekick, Chase? Chase is not here today. He's not here physically, but he's here in my heart. I couldn't do this without Chase. And then I'll talk about Chase at the end. So in order to generate micromechanical retention on the zirconia surface, I cannot use hydrofluoric acid etch. I definitely cannot use phosphoric acid. Can I use a burr or some kind of, you know, mechanical grinding? Not indicated, because it alters the surface. It alters physical, it may have an effect on physical properties. So sandblasting is something that maybe we can use, right? So research was done on the ability to sandblast the zirconia surface. So a lot of people did research on the size of the aluminum oxide powder, whether it was 25 microns, 75 microns, 50 microns, all sorts of different tests to see which one worked better. The time, whether you sandblast it for 10 seconds, 5 seconds, 20 seconds, 50 seconds, 5 minutes, all of this. You know, also the pressure, 30 PSI, 40 PSI, 50 PSI. So what the research has shown is that in order to generate micromechanical retention on zirconia, you need to sandblast. Now hear me out, guys. This is important. And this will be recorded so you can watch it again. You need to sandblast the surface for 20 seconds using a 50 micron aluminum oxide powder at 40 PSI or 2.8 bar pressure. Again, you need to sandblast for 20 seconds using a 50 micron aluminum oxide powder at 2.8 bar or 40 psi. You need to do that in order to generate micromechanical retention. I got another question. Let's see. Already answered this one. Do you sandblast before trying? That's a good question, and I will answer that in a minute. So you need to generate that surface that is ready for bonding. Now, I'm going to apply a primer. What kind of primer? Simple. You cannot use silane, okay? You need something that actually gets into the zirconia surface and chemically bonds to it. Now, there is a functional monomer developed by Curare maybe 25 years ago, 20 years ago. It's called MDP. Now, MDP is widely used nowadays by many companies, not only on adhesives, but also on surface primers. So the idea is to place a surface primer that contains MDP, such as Z Prime Plus from BISCO or Monovan Plus from Ivoclar, ceramic primer by Curare. They contain MDP. You apply it and you follow the manufacturer's instructions, and the MDP containing primer will bond chemically to the zirconia surface. All right? So this is important. You sandblast, then you prime it. Okay? Sandblast, then you prime it. You generate micromechanical retention, then you generate the chemical bond. Right there, you're ready to do your cementation procedure. That is how you actually bond. Okay? This is how you actually bond. This is how you prepare the surface. Now, here's the thing. A lot of people have their lab sandblast the surface because they don't have a sandblaster in their office. It's too messy. I'm going to recommend two types of sandblaster that you can use in the office because you can use them with water. Okay, one of them is called Prep Start by Danville. The other one is called Aqua Care. What are those two? They work with any sort of powder, whether it's aluminum oxide, sodium bicarbonate, whatever, and they actually have the ability to do the sandblasting with water, in conjunction with water, so there is no mess. Okay, when I practiced, I had a sandblaster without water, and that was messy. So it was always an issue, right? I got another question. Let me see what people are asking. Okay, I'm sorry. They asked same question. Do I sandblast before trying? So that is your surface preparation. Lab will sandblast for you, or you will sandblast it once you receive it. Okay. Now here's the thing. Everyone tries in the restoration. Now on metal, on feldspathic porcelain, on Emax, there is absolutely no problem with contact with saliva. Saliva will not have an effect on those surfaces. Once you try it in, all you got to do is clean it and you're done. You know, whether you clean it with ethanol, alcohol, acetone, ultrasonic cleaning, water. It doesn't matter. There is no issue. There are no issues. Zirconia is a different story. Zirconia will be contaminated by the phosphate groups that are contained in saliva. Saliva will contaminate the zirconia surface and it will deplete the surface of bonding sites. So when the zirconia surface is contaminated by saliva, it will be impossible to bond to it. It will be impossible to bond to it. So what do you do? All right. So let's say you get the restoration sandblasted from the lab, okay? And you try it in. What do you do now? Well, you can do a few things. First of all, you can try to remove that contaminated surface by using, remove it chemically. Something called Zirclean by BISCO or Ivoclean by Ivoclar. All right, is potassium chloride. Basically what it does is when you apply it, it generates this alkaline pH environment, and it will remove that surface. It will leave a very, very, very clean surface ready for you to bond to it. If you don't remove this contaminated surface, what's going to happen is that your bonding is going to be defective. It's going to be hindered by the saliva. Even if you clean the saliva, even if you think you cleaned it with ethanol or alcohol or anything, saliva will contaminate zirconia upon contact. So you try it in, whether you sandblasted, whether the lab sandblasted it for you or not, you apply Zirclean by BISCO or Ivoclean by Ivoclar, and then you rinse that away. You apply following manufacturer's instructions, and then you, if it's sandblasted from the lab, and then you apply your MDP containing primer. If you're going to sandblast it, you can sandblast it before trying it in, or you can sandblast it after. However, it's always good to, after trying, use some sort of chemical cleaning. And right now, there are two chemical agents, two products that will remove that contamination from the zirconia surface. Zirclean from BISCO and Ivoclean from Ivoclar. I got another question here. Will a restoration fail if it's not sandblasted? I'm going to answer that live, and the answer is yes, it might fail. Let me put it this way. It increases the chances for failure. Sandblasting is a must, okay? You have to sandblast it. Also, you need to clean the surface with something like Zirclean for BISCO or Ivoclean from Ivoclar in order to remove that contaminated surface from zirconia once you have tried it in. You need that in your office. Zirclean by BISCO or Ivoclean by Ivoclar. You need that to have it. After trying, you clean it with that, and then you're ready to sandblast it, and then apply your primer. Or if it comes sandblasted from the lab, and then you apply your primer, and you're good to go. All right, you're good to go. I got another question here, and it is, okay, I already did answer that. Now, here's the thing. Okay, here's the thing. If you're going to use a cement, like a self-adhesive cement, for example, Rely X Unicem 2, or Bissem. The first one is 3Ms. Bissem is from BISCO. Speedsem from, I believe, is Denseply or Ivoclar. I don't remember. There's so many out there. Maxem Elite. You know, these are self-adhesive cements. On the tooth structure, you don't need to place an adhesive. All right, you're good. But you need to place an MDP primer. MDP containing primer. Now, you have a few. Z Prime from BISCO. You have Marlon Plus from Ivoclar. And you have ceramic primer from Curare. You have those three. Okay, you have those three. You need to apply this after you have cleaned, sandblasted the surface, and then you apply the primer. Now, if you're going to use a self-adhesive cement on the tooth, if your preparation is not short, and if you have enough retention, you can use, you can squirt in your Rely X Unicem, and then you see your restoration, and you're good to go, because the cement will bond to the zirconia surface via mechanical retention that you achieved with a sandblasting procedure and chemical bonding that you achieved with your MDP containing primer, and then your cement will bond to that. And then, of course, it will do a self-adhesive procedure to the tooth structure. And then you're good, all right? There are a lot of self-adhesive cements out there, but all cements require a prime surface with an MDP containing primer, all right? Again, Z Prime from BISCO Monoban Plus from Ivoclar, Ceramic Prime from Curare. Now, let's say your prep is short. It's not retentive. Now we have to do a bonding procedure on the tooth. The bonding procedure on the zirconia is exactly the same. The bonding procedure on the tooth is required based upon the shape, the size, the height, the mechanical prep of that tooth. So sometimes we need to do bonding on the tooth. So you follow your bonding protocol, whatever it is, whether it's self-etch, total etch, selective etch, using a universal adhesive, you want to use whatever, it doesn't matter. Today's activity is about bonding to zirconia, not to the tooth structure. But it is important to say that every time, personally, every time I bonded or I used a self-adhesive cement on a short prep, restoration came off. It came off. Why? Because the bond strength of the self-adhesive cement to the tooth, it's not strong enough to be able to withstand that short prep, you know, the mechanics of the short prep. So when you have a short prep, a non-retentive prep, you need to bond to the tooth. You always need to bond to zirconia, always, but you need to bond to the tooth, all right? I got another question here. Violeta Preciosi said, and after clean with IvoClean, you apply Monobond. Now, I can see Violeta Preciosi is an Ivoclar user, and that's fine, yes. So if you apply IvoClean or Zirclean from BISCO, do I apply Monobond Plus? Well, first of all, I need to sandblast. If you sandblast it before and then you clean with IvoClean or Zirclean, then yeah, sure, you can apply your Monobond Plus. Monobond Plus. There are a few Monobonds out there. You got Monobond S, and then you have Monobond Plus. Monobond Plus, you're good. Or you can use Z Prime for BISCO, or you can use Ceramic Primer from Curare. Right here, it says, most of my zirconia restorations are in short preps. Patients with parafunction. Do I need to bond? Yes, you need to bond. If you have a short prep, you need to bond to the prep, to the tooth structure, following your adhesive protocol, but you need to bond because it's not, the self-adhesive cement is not going to be enough. Violeta Preciosi again, but we use Theracem as our cement. Okay, Violeta Preciosi, she has asked an interesting question. Now, I already went through the bonding protocol. It's always going to be the same. You are going to sandblast it, okay? You try it in, or you try it in, and then you clean it, and then you sandblast, or you sandblast, or you try it, and then you clean it, and then you apply your primer. Now, Violeta Preciosi is telling me that in her office, they use a product called Theracem. That's a product from BISCO. And I was waiting for somebody to mention it. I didn't want to mention it. I just, if somebody used Theracem and asked a question, I was going to answer it. Theracem is an MDP-containing cement that has releases calcium, generates an alkaline pH, undergoes a pH transformation from 4, which is acidic at the beginning in order to bond, and becomes around, it gets to around 10 to 11 after 30 minutes, you know, and alkaline pH is an interesting thing to have, especially inside the tooth structure and at the interface. Now, Theracem does not require Z Prime or Monobond Plus for bonding to zirconia optimally. Z Prime as a standalone product will bond to zirconia the same way as, let's say, BISCO will bond, but using Z Prime in conjunction with BISCO. So if you're going to use any self-adhesive cement, you are going to need a primer. Whether it's Reliax Unicem, whether it's, you know, the product from Ivoclar, whether it's BISCO from BISCO, all of those products require the use of a primer. However, with Theracem, all you need to do is sandblast. So if you're using Theracem, for many reasons, you know, the calcium release, the alkaline pH, ease of use, it's easy to clean. One of the things to consider is that you don't need to prime the surface with either Z prime or Monobond Plus or ceramic primer or anything. All you need to do is apply the product after it has been cleaned and sandblasted on the surface. So that's really interesting. Here we go, another question. Corey, already answered this. I already answered this. Anthony Mubasser, with new generation zirconia to do veneers, do you trust bonding the veneer zirconia to tooth and lasts a long time with Panavia V5? I'm going to answer that I will never bond a veneer with a self-adhesive cement. I will never do that. I will bond the veneer, depending on the thickness of the veneer, but if it's a veneer, it should be, you know, anywhere between 0.3, 0.4, all the way to maybe 1.2 millimeters in thickness. I will always use a light cure cement. I will bond to the enamel of the tooth, the prepped enamel, and I will bond to zirconia following this protocol. Do I trust it? I think the bonding has gotten a lot better. I will not trust Panavia as my cement for a veneer. I will definitely trust Panavia for a crown, but not for a veneer. I will use a light cure cement. I will follow protocol as I described. Because my light cure cement has no MDP, I will sandblast, clean after trying, and then apply a MDP containing primer on that veneer, and then I will use a light cure cement. And I know there are a few people right now who are doing a lot of these, and they're doing their clinical assessment of these restorations, and so far so good. Dr. McLaren is one of them, and Dr. Milko Villarroel from Chile/Brazil, and McLaren from the US are working, you know, adamantly on these new type of materials, and they are, you know, pioneering this movement and generating data for all of us. All right, let me see what other questions we have here. I already answer this. Here's what would you do? Would you do veneers done with zirconia? Yes, I think I would do that. Definitely do it. So I'm going to do another poll. All right, let's see. Now, I'm gonna, how confident are you when bonding to zirconia? Think about how you felt before and after, all right? Do you feel extremely confident? Do you feel somewhat confident? Sort of confident? And some of you might ask, what is zirconia? All right, so you can answer that. I'm gonna move a little bit right now. Sorry about that. Great. So, perfect. You're still taking that poll. Okay, guys, I'm going to end the poll, and thank you so much for taking the poll. All right. Now, I got another question. Sam Hammam, does sandblasting the prep help achieve a better bond? If it's a veneer and you're sandblasting the enamel, yes. If it's a crown or inlay-onlay, and now we're talking about sandblasting not only enamel but dentin, depending on the sandblaster you're using. I've seen some dentin sandblasted by Prep Start and by AquaCare, and it looks nice. And I'm about to start doing some testing on sandblasted dentin to see how it affects the bonding, okay? On enamel, definitely bond, increases the bond strength to enamel, all right? Terry Winchester, can I skip IvoClean if I rinse inside the crown with soap and water, then sandblast, place Z prime, then bond? Yes, absolutely. You can skip the IvoClean or the Zirclean if you sandblast after trying, because sandblasting will mechanically remove all of the contaminated surface, and then you apply your Z prime. Absolutely, you can do that. Okay, so you get the crown from the lab. You tell the lab, don't sandblast it, I'll sandblast it. You try it in, it's contaminated, you sandblast it, and then you apply your Z prime, and you're good to go. Absolutely, that's a way of doing it. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that, all right? Nothing wrong with that, all right? I got another question here. Let me see. Mario Felipe Gutierrez, what is your opinion with combined MDP-containing silane plus MDP-containing adhesive in zirconia? I'm going to answer that. I believe that MDP-containing adhesive will work on zirconia in case of an emergency. Meaning that if, let's say, you ran out of your zirconia bonding primer, you know, you ran out of Z prime or you ran out of Monobond Plus and you have your MDP containing adhesive, you can use it. Nevertheless, you always have to light cure it. You always have to light cure it. That's a fact, okay? You're gonna have to light cure it all the time, every time. Now, silane, when you combine it with low pH, you know, when you put silane in a low pH environment, silane will be deactivated. So I don't believe that the silane on a product like Monobond Plus is very effective, nor the silane that is contained in a product like Scotch Bond Universal. It's not effective. And I have data to prove that. But that's not the topic of discussion today. The MDP that is contained in Monobond Plus will work. The MDP that is contained in Z Prime will work. The MDP that is contained in All Bond Universal, Scotch Bond Universal will work as long as you light cure it. So you have that option. Are you going to use your adhesive, your MDP containing adhesive as your zirconia primer? It's always better to use a dedicated adhesive, always better. Okay, now, here's the deal. Oh, let me see, I have another poll. It just popped, all right? It just popped. Hold on. This is kind of like an interesting piece of information from you guys, all right? How many zirconia restorations do you place in a month? Why is this important? Because I believe that whatever you're placing, you should be placing more. Zirconia is a really strong material. It's a good material. And now it's actually very, very, very popular. Very, very popular. So I think you should think about using zirconia more and more in your office, including that in your restorative armamentarium. Offering to patients, you know, patients that are bruxers, patients with, you know, parafunction, and it's just, you know, it's a nice material. It's a very nice, strong material, and I think it's a cool thing to have and to offer to patients. All right, thank you for taking that taking that poll. Now, optimize cementation. What does that mean? Well, optimized cementation means that you have to be able to rationally select the materials you're using. Do you need to use like a family of products from one company alone? No. You can use whatever you want from every other company. On the zirconia, you can sandblast with anything you want, as long as it is a 50 micron aluminum oxide powder that comes out of a sandblasting tip at 2.8 bars or 40 psi for 20 seconds. It doesn't matter if it comes out of a prep start with water or aqua care with water, or if you buy one of these sandblasters that cost like, I don't know, 300 bucks, or if the lab sends it to you already sandblasted. You have to specify to the lab, this is what I want you to do. And you need to take care of business in your office. So if you're going to be responsible for the sandblasting, you need to make sure you have the proper setup. I will highly recommend, I do not get paid or sponsored or endorsed by AquaCare or by Prep Start. All right, this is Danville Engineering and Aquacare. Danville is here in the US and Aquacare, I think, is from England. I think Aquacare is cool because it's got a dual chamber thing, so you could go from aluminum oxide and then you could have sodium bicarbonate for prophylaxis. That's fine. You can do that. But you need to take care of business. You should be responsible for the bonding, not the lab. And the bonding starts with sandblasting. That's where it starts. It's just an opinion. All right, just an opinion. I got another 2 questions. Let's see. Can we see the results? Maybe. Thank you, Mark. May we see the results? Just curious. Maybe. Later on, we'll discuss that. Now, here's the deal. Here's the deal. What cement to use? I have given you a few options, all right? If you're going to use a self-adhesive cement, which is probably the most convenient one, you have to think about, or you have to see what kind of prep you have. You have enough retention, you have a solid, good height, not too, something that has retention. And then you can use a self-adhesive cement, and you can use any self-adhesive cement. Reliax Unisem from 3M. You can use Maxem from Kerr, Speedsem from, I don't know if it's Dansply or Ivoclar, I don't know, BISCO from BISCO, those will work. But in every single instance, you need to sandblast and apply an MDP containing primer to the surface. On the tooth, you don't need to do anything as long as the prep is retentive. Now, if the prep is not retentive, you're going to do the same on the surface, sandblast, MDP containing primer, but on the tooth or on the prep, you're going to do your bonding. What cement are you going to use? You can use one of these self-adhesive cement and you lose the potential of self-adhesiveness, or you can use a product like, let's say, Reliax Ultimate, Dual Link Universal from BISCO. Reliax Ultimate is from 3M. You can use Nexus 3 from Kerr. You can use Majesty or something from Curare. It doesn't matter. Any dual cured cement, as long as it is a crown inlay or onlay or bridge, will work. Okay? Any dual cured cement will work. Do you need to use a special cement? No, you don't. You don't need to use any special cement. You can use any cement as long as it is dual cured and as long as it is compatible with your adhesive or your adhesive compatible with your cement. Okay? However, if you have Theracem, which is the standalone category created very special cement from BISCO, you can use it without having to use a primer on the surface of Zirconia, of the restoration. And also, if it's retentive and then it's good, it will, self-adhesive, but it will generate an alkaline pH and generate a calcium release environment. Here we got more questions. Oh, already answered these questions. Now, I have discussed here what is Zirconia, surface preparation, bonding protocol, and optimized cementation. I'm going to ask here, are there any questions? I'm right now at 44 minutes of activity. I don't want to call this a webinar. This is not a webinar. You can actually see my socks here. This is the comfort of my home. I have opened my home for you. I think this is cooler than being a talking head with a bunch of slides, right? I like to have conversations with people. I have another question here. Rodrigo Gutierrez, for how long does the alkaline effect of Theracem last? Hello, Rodrigo. Rodrigo is a brother from Mexico. Good friend, great dentist, prosthodontist. It lasts forever. It's always alkaline. It goes from 4, pH of 4, all the way to 10 or 11, and it stays there forever. There is no fluctuation regarding the pH. I have to tell you, one of the most beautiful things about doing these webinars at home is that I'm entitled to the rights of having a drink with you guys. It's always nice, all right? Now, let's do another poll. Let's see what we got around here. Oh, somebody asked me if I could share the results. Absolutely. Here is the first result. All right. And I'm going to stop that. You already saw the results. Now, think about, do you have your lab do the sandblasting for you? Or do you do your own sandblasting? Okay, think about that. Why is that important? Because depending on who does the sandblasting, you have to strategize how you're going to approach this. Now, as I can see here, 60% of you have the lab do the sandblasting. So a lot of people have their lab do the sandblasting, whether, you know, it's because they don't want to buy a sandblaster, it's messy, it's a hassle, okay? Came down to 59 to 41. Pretty interesting, Close to 50-50, close to 50-50. Quite interesting. All right, I'm going to close this poll. Great. Thank you very much. I got another question. Anthony Mobuser, I have never tried zirconia veneers and I am very hesitant. You're saying it will last. Listen, Anthony, this is what I'm going to tell you. I haven't told you they will last. What I've said is that bonding is possible. I have no, magic, crystal ball to see if they will last. But you know what? That's the beauty of dentistry. You try things. Sometimes they fail. Sometimes they don't. Maybe you're one of those dentists who wants to stay ahead of the curve. You know, you're one of these guys who are, what is it that they call it in marketing? Not innovators, but early adopters of technology. Other people are a little bit more reserved and conservative. That's okay. Nobody's going to blame you for trying, and no one is going to say you're a bad dentist because you try new technology in your office. Imagine the first guy, Anthony, who placed an implant. Everybody probably called him crazy, and look at the world now. Imagine the first guy who placed a veneer. Imagine the first guy who did a root canal. Imagine that guy. Maybe that guy is going to be you if you decide to start working with zirconia veneers. What are you afraid of? Dentistry is beautiful, my friend. Beautiful. Gives you the opportunity to be a pioneer. I'm going to do one last poll to you guys before I leave. Okay? Before I leave, this is my final post. There are 2 questions, all right? I'm going to launch it right there. Did you enjoy this webinar and did you learn anything or did you learn something? So answer that so I can go and you can all go. Wow, I can see that most of you guys enjoyed this webinar. I don't want to call it a webinar. I want to call it an event where people got a chance to ask some questions and and of course, we're sharing information. Okay, we're sharing information. I got here, did you learn something? Some people said I learned a lot. Some people said kind of learned something. And then we got Juan El Bumo. I love whoever wrote El Bumo because El Bumo is El Bumo. I'm going to end this poll. I'm going to share these results. Guys, it's been a pleasure to share with you guys. If you have any questions, that which will be able to rewatch this? Yes, you will be able to rewatch this. There is an email you're going to get, thanking you for participating. And you can write questions to me directly, all right? And I will answer all of them. And also, you will be sent a link where you can watch this again, anytime you want, and share it with your, you know, with your co-workers or with friends and so on and so forth. Thank you so much for joining. It's been a pleasure, all right? And let me remind you that right here, in my house, other than my wife, Ro knows. I do know. I mean, does anybody know more than Ro? Not in this living room right now. Thank you so much, guys. Love you. Take care.